Ba-dum-bum-bum. I tell you what, one night I went to bed and America was beautiful. A few years later, I woke up and somehow we turned into Gotham City. To the Batmobile we go. Welcome to Grounded, the place to hear the salty truth. I'm your host, Scott Cates, coming to you live from the Northeast Georgia mountains and the tiny town of Tiger, where today it's just like it is everywhere else. Prices are high. Did you see the headlines today? Oh, inflation is not cooling. As a matter of fact, the fire of inflation has risen in the month of February. Prices are even that much higher. Now, I don't know about you, but I was watching the State of the Union address. I know. Why did you do that, right? Well, I just caught kind of excerpts of it, and I kind of got through the sections where I got to listen to how the American people need to pay their fair share. I heard some of that. And we'll talk about Biden's new economic program that just has recently come out, the pages of that so that we can see. We've been billed and told that only the top wage earners, $400,000 and up, are going to be charged, taxed more, or their taxes raised in the coming years. We'll get to all of that in just a minute. Boy, I tell you, it's something out there for sure. It is a beautiful day here, though. I will tell you that. And thank God spring is coming, and it's an amazing thing. Beautiful outside. The flowers have all popped up, which means the pollen is coming real soon. And for those of you guys that are probably south of us, which is everyone who's in Georgia pretty much and below, I'm sure that's probably come on for you like gangbusters right now. But for right now, the one thing we do see that's coming on like gangbusters is inflation. Good grief. I'm telling you, it costs a lot to go to the grocery store. Now, even though fuel prices seem to sort of hover back and forth, and we watched the stock market even last week, it amazes me how this actually happens. Once it drops out about 500 points, it starts to kind of slow down in that process a little bit. And then the very next morning, here we go again. It comes up 58, 68 points above that 500-point drop. This happens almost every time. And doesn't that send anybody kind of wondering, how does this actually take place? How can the market drop off more, like 500 points or more in a day? And then the next day it hover around 58 to 68. And then all of a sudden it takes an increase. There's something weird about that. I'm just saying. Just want to make sure that we understand something ain't right there. It just doesn't feel like it. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. It's just odd that it turns out that way every single time. You listen to Biden talk and you'd hear that, the economy is great. Look, people, the economy's coming back. Not according to the numbers for February, it's not. And you hear all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden now, finally, Biden's economic plan is unveiled. And I was looking at that. The details that were behind that are behind that plan. Besides inflation running hotter than they even remotely expected, we're expecting the largest tax hikes in U.S. history. This, according to an article I'm reading right here. Jason Smith, the chairman of the House and Ways and Means Committee, says that the $7.3 trillion budget for the 2025 fiscal year includes staggering tax increases for every American. His quote is, "This budget that's been released today is the largest tax increase in the history of our country. $5 trillion in new taxes." That's just in this proposal alone. But by the end of the proposal, he wants all of the 2017 Trump tax cuts to expire as well. So what that means is there'll already be a tax increase coming for 2025. And so while that comes, we're going to end the 2017 Trump tax cuts that were there. Now, this is important that you understand. Let me explain to you. This is a rule out of the Democratic Party playbook for presidents for a long time. Been going like this since the 1920s. We've been about 100 years into this idea. Not every Democratic president has engaged in this, but many have. And so what usually happens is if there's a successful economic program put in place by the predecessor of that president, they usually just sign it back over into law. Now, this happened during the days of Ronald Reagan. When George Bush took office, Sr. took office, he signed. We have talked about this before in the podcast before, but George Bush Sr. signed back over Reaganomics into law, and so did Bill Clinton. 7 years of Clinton's run as president. He just signed back Reaganomics over, just kept signing it over until the 8th year. And in the 8th year, he wrote a train wreck of an economic program to begin a few months prior to George Bush taking office. And so this is pretty common. And it's kind of like sabotage in some ways, if you will. It's sort of is putting the challenge to the person who's coming into office. And if that person doesn't catch it quick enough or doesn't have the ability to sort of prepare quick enough, the country falls into a recession or a depression that gets blamed on the person in office. And that's a pretty solid rule of thumb that's taken place. They said that when Clinton left office and walked out of office, it was one of the worst economic policies in history. But not only that, all of the people that worked for him pretty much trashed everything that they had been working on and left it in horrible condition on the way out the door of the office so that the people coming in would literally have to start from scratch and start over. It's just a way that things happen to usually the outgoing president. Now, what does that mean? Well, all I can tell you is this. With what's written in the new policy or the new proposal that is here, this is huge because already we've got inflation going on. Now you're going to take more money out of people's pockets on a daily basis. And what they're really going after, and have always been going after, is the tax refund. That's what they want. They look and they say, well, these people they live without this money every day. So why don't we just take the refund from them, plus some? So Donald Trump's plan of the 2017 tax cuts was a really good plan. It did put money into big business, but it put money into big business so that America could actually thrive and be competitive on a worldwide scale. Makes good sense, actually. Now, it wouldn't make good sense if your average Democrat was probably talking to you about that and trying to tell you that, because they would look at all the other programs for everything else, including the funding of, illegals. And by the way, if you didn't see that as well, having to apologize for using the word illegal. But when you break the law to come into this country, anytime you break the law, that would be, quote unquote, illegal, unless we're trying to change the terms again. It's amazing how the Democratic Party most of the time ends up spending an enormous amount of time trying to redefine the terms so that you can never discover what absolute truth really looks like. And I do have a bone to pick with that, no doubt. Anyway, so going back to understanding the economic policy, already inflation is through the roof, similar to Jimmy Carter, not necessarily as bad, but similar. And now what we're going to do is we're going to plan on January of 2025, of which if he gets taken out of office, this is Joe Biden, if he gets taken out of office, 3 weeks is all he'll serve. And then the oncoming president, which looks like it could be Donald Trump, that's if everything runs the way that it looks right at this second, it could be that. And if it does happen with that, he's now got to overturn that. Well, it took him 16 months to overturn what the Obama administration had done before. And it took him 16 months, which was a record, because 18 months is the record that Ronald Reagan held at turning around the economy. But it's still going to take him 16 months. Ladies and gentlemen, it will still take him 16 months to overcome that economic plan, which is going to be rough for you in 2025, should this proposal become a reality. And that is the truth, because this is not just a tax increase for $400,000 and up. It's a tax increase on every single American, plus the rollback of the tax cuts you already enjoy from 2017 under Trump. So it's going to be a double hit, which means you'll take home less money in your pocket and already spending much more money, at least a third more to a half more in some places already today. That's not good news, but it is a reality. You couldn't set up to literally step on the American people harder than to do what's just about to happen in 2025 under this economic plan, period. So you need to understand that. It's important. And so that's coming down the pike. I'm not trying to depress you today. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to tell you what's come up that needs to be brought to your attention that you understand. And so it's going to be an interesting run over the next 18 months for sure. And that being said, today, we were out yesterday. I'm still fighting. You can hear the rasp in my voice. I'm still sort of fighting what we've been going through. So I've been trying to go and work on trying to fix whatever this is that's attached to my voice. But in that, yesterday, of course, we didn't have the podcast today. In Georgia is the day to go and cast your vote for the presidential primary. So if you have not done that yet, the polls close later on this evening. Make sure you get out to do that. That would be great. And it looks like most likely both candidates are going to take away the nomination for their parties, which would make it'd be historical for Donald Trump, I think, in the process. So where are we? Well, let's just take a look at the lineup of what is going on. When I first started to talk about the border, it was 7.2 million people had crossed the border. That upped real quick within a few weeks to 7.4 million. I'd say today we're probably around 7.6 million still because they're still crossing the border in record numbers. We discover in the last 2 weeks that who is crossing the border? All kinds of different nationalities that are our enemy. Of the top 10, I think 8 are the sworn enemies of this nation. At the same time, the people that actually are crossing the border, they're now seeing that there's smuggling going on from groups like ISIS and groups that are completely the enemy with the intention of something to come. In the process, they know that. The State Department has already placed out a warning on some of these things. How come what's amazing, I look at it like this. Here it is. Everybody 2 to 4 years ago, we're talking about conspiracies. Listen to these people and there's conspiracy theories. We just need it's time for new conspiracy theories, I think, because all the old ones have actually come true, all right? Because we already knew that these things were taking place. Because the truth is the majority of the American people are just not stupid, but they're played for stupid. And that's the truth. So you have to know if the border is going to be that open and the numbers that are coming across, many of those are going to be people that hate us with a passion. And when we broadcast the fact that they can get across the border like that, they run for the border and they're like, hey, look, we can just get in for free. And now we've discovered that the president of the United States will actually fly us in. If we'll go get on an airplane somewhere outside of the nation, we'll fly us right across the border into these cities. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I am going to say this, and this is important for us to understand. If the leader of this nation is flying people across the border to come into this nation illegally, we have a problem. Number 2, if those people that come across the nation in these states are getting support once they hit the ground, not only to become voters in this nation, but also to receive health care and to receive funding on top of that and to be requested by people in their states to assist them in breaking the law, we still have a problem. Anybody with me here? I'm just saying, am I the only person that believes this? We still have a problem when that's the case. When 7.4 to 7.6 million people come across the border in just over 3 years, we have a problem. And those people are influxing and infiltrating it that looks like an invasion, we have an issue. Something's going wrong. When the man stands up at at a State of the Union address and says, I just can't do anything. I can't work. People won't work with me. Well, you were the one that said in the beginning that you crossed the aisles and you got things done. And you've passed 585 pieces of legislation under an executive order that have to do with the border, and none of those have to do with securing it. It's all going the other direction. We have an issue there. Finally, when you systematically destroy an economy of the people that live here, and not only on top of that, but you make it harder for them to have jobs, like Bill Clinton, who stood before in a State of the Union address and stepped up and said, what are we going to do when these people cross the border? There aren't enough jobs to go around. They'll take jobs away from hardworking Americans. Do they do this? Of course. Are we already in trouble? Of course we are. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at an article right in front of me right now that says college graduates now graduate and work high school level jobs. 73% of college graduates who enter the labor market are underemployed. They will take a high school level job and stay in that high school level job for 10 years. One more time. Are you listening to me? 73% of college graduates don't have a job when they get out of college right now. So they take a high school level job to try to just make ends meet, and they'll keep it for 10 years. We got issues already, let alone what's coming. We have issues like crazy. So when you put all of that to work and you look, now you're going to raise the taxes on all of these college graduates that are graduating from college. More than 80% of those stay in those jobs for 5 years. Anybody see a train wreck coming, and now we're going to raise the taxes? They raise the taxes on who? And if you take a look at who, you're going to have to raise the taxes on people who are actually filing. Well, that's not illegals that are filing. Number one, you're going to actually raise the taxes on people who are actually hardworking, and there are many people who aren't doing that either as well. So you're going to raise the taxes. You're actually going to penalize now those who are actually doing things right and are legal. Ladies and gentlemen, unprecedented in history, do we have a problem? And it's one of the reasons why this is translating at the polls today, because we discovered 4 years ago when people were angry and they went out to vote and they said, anyone but Trump. Anyone but Trump wasn't a good idea. And any single time, by the way, that you step up in anger and fury and you do something and you knee-jerk react, most of the time it isn't good. And whatever comes in is horrible. Guess what we've discovered? It's not so good. And the misery index is at an all-time high. Meanwhile, you got the media out there going, no, it's not. It's all good. It's all fine. But you listen to a president say, I can't do anything about the border because, well, no one will work with me. And then I can't. American people just need to pay their fair share. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing that. And I'm getting sick and tired of watching the conspiracy theories come true. When we were once told, no, that's not the way it is. No, that's not the case. And there are so many more. Now, where are we? I could tell you 57 different ways that this nation got to the place that she's at. But what comes down to is this. We wanted something more, or we wanted something else, and we wanted something extra, or we wanted something. Look what it's got us. I kid you not, Chicago looks like Gotham City. San Francisco looks even worse. I've seen photos out of both cities. It's crazy. I've seen photos out of places in New York. It's unbelievable. And it's not just in those places. Many of the Texas towns look like Gotham City again. I'm telling you, it is tough out there in places. And many of those citizens are crying out, trying to figure out what do we do. And the misery index is high, which is why you see the polls look like they do. And you see things going the way that they're going right now. People are tired of being told to sit down and shut up and just live with it. It has to be, you need to do this. This needs to be. And it all comes back to it's this racist fault or that racist fault, or stop. It's far greater than any of those things. Let me just say this as well. Yes, we have enemies. This nation does have enemies. But let me tell you, what's worse than your national enemies that come to the door is a crooked politician that sits in an office that looks up and looks you in the eye and tells you one thing and does another, and they do it one after another for their personal gain at the cost of the American people. To me, that is worse, oftentimes, than an enemy, because they are. They look you in the eye and promise to take care of you and promise to be there on your behalf, and then turn around the opposite direction as they stab you in the back and go home wealthier than they've ever known individually in their whole life. No, the standards aren't even. They haven't been even in a long time. And no, it's not fair. It isn't. And I promise you, there comes a point where you've just had enough of it. And you're going to see probably, most likely, that exactly take place. All of a sudden, we watch all of these court cases come up against a previous president. But also underlying in that are the people who were going after that are actually, their backgrounds are being turned upside down as well, and finding out how corrupt they actually are and those who surround them actually are, and the reasons why this is actually taking place. You watch in the next month to 2 months to see what comes out of the woodwork in their lives as well. Because you don't go and start going after the people who are trying to do the best for America and then turn around and think they're not going to come back and look in your life. They are. And that's where we are. If you hear me today and you think, well, he's frustrated. I just can't believe we're here. I can't believe we're in this place. I can't believe that's the case. I had someone say, surely there's got to be a better choice than these two. There's got to be a better choice. These are the choices, and they are. And I know the question is the misery index. And by the way, we're going to vote on the misery, how miserable the people are. We voted on how miserable the people were 4 years ago because they didn't want to hear the mouth of Donald Trump. People got sick and tired of hearing that mouth. Well, I got news for you. That mouth, and as crazy as it sounds sometimes, scares the living daylights out of the rest of the world. And as it does scare the living daylights out of the rest of the world, it provides security. And it did provide security for the U.S. because they think, man, he is just crazy. But at least he's not weak. And at least he doesn't portray weakness and feebleness. And at least he doesn't provide a bunch of excuses and say, well, I couldn't work with so-and-so, and I couldn't. At least that's not the case. I'm just saying. Because that's not the hand that the United States of America, I believe, honestly, needs to be holding, is a weak hand. Yes, we do need somebody who can play poker well. I look back, Reagan played poker well. Had the best poker face on the planet, and they thought he was John Wayne insane. And it kept America safe. I remember the days when Mitt Romney was running for office and telling us, if you do this, we'll end up in a Cold War. Everybody kept saying, that's a conspiracy theory. There's no way that's going to happen. Where are we now? That wasn't even Donald Trump telling us. That was Mitt Romney, who was running for office, telling us this is going to come. And everything Mitt Romney said would happen if this took place, it is exactly what is happening today. It's not conspiracy theory. It almost looks like prophecy, to be honest with you. And if you think we don't have enemies, then you've got your head stuck in the sand. We do. And they're on both sides. This is what I'm trying to tell you. The enemy of the people are the ones that are crossing the border with the intention to do harm. Not all are, and I understand that. But there are many that are. But there are also our enemies that sit in an office. Not all of them. There are many good men that sit in office and good women that sit in office. And they're there for the American people and not their own self-interest. But there are many crooked politicians that are in that office that are not out for the best interest of the American people. And those two are the enemy, no doubt. And the greatest tool that you have there at your At your disposal is your vote. You can use your vote. Thank God we still are a democracy even at this point. A government that is of the people, for the people, by the people. Use it. We should never cast our vote in anger and knee-jerk reactions because something didn't work out the way that we think. But we should be able to look and at the crumbling and the destruction of this country and the power that we actually have had. The power, first of all, in faith, which has been important, but second of all, in might, which is crumbling. Third of all, in economic, we were very wealthy and doing well. That's crumbling. We are watching all of these things crumble. And when those things are attacked and when those things are purposely planned against, that is not good. Which is why people are running to go and vote because the misery index is high. We have a great nation, ladies and gentlemen, and it still is, even though the things that are happening around us, it's still, for this time and this point in being, still is. But I can tell you, the voice of people who are standing up that want this government to be of the people, for the people, by the people, for a free people, and that we actually have a republic which is absolutely amazing, filled with free people whose hearts are governed by the ethics and the morals of the Judeo-Christian values. They might not necessarily believe in Jesus, but they understand that the values are valuable. That's a key, and it's a key to freedom and its importance, period. And I'm off my soapbox on that. I've not tried to get on politics today and be on this the entire time, but I want you to understand that you go cast your vote, and the reason why things look that way they do, this is the reason. This is the reason. We're tired of being lied to. We are. We're tired of being taken for granted, and we are. We're tired of being taken for fools, and we are. We're tired of being told, I'm sorry, well, there's nothing we can do. Yeah, that's not the case either. Yes, you can. We have the ability. We're tired of watching the security when they go to build a wall for the next person to come in and tear it down so that more people can cross the border. That's not security. Are you hearing me? Now, I know some of you today are going to look up and say, well, you've said a lot against the Democratic Party. I have a lifetime of growing up underneath and seeing what the record is there. And here's what I do know. Since I was born in the mid-1960s to this day, every single time a Democrat has been in office, more money has come out of our pocket than ever. And every time the American president has been a Republican, he has pushed to put the dollar back into our pocket. I do know that, number one. Number two, in my lifetime since I've been alive, every single time, by the way, an American president has been a Republican in my lifetime, the nation has been more secure, period. There is no question about that. Gas prices have decreased, not increased, but decreased during those times in office. And number four, there's been an economic plan, even though we've gone through recessions, and we did go through George W. Bush's recession in there because of the result of what happened at the end of the Clinton presidency. I almost said pregnancy right there because we sure did birth a bunch of stuff out of that for sure. But anyway, yes, that's where we are. So today on American history, as I can look back, I can tell you that's the case. And you can say, well, what are you, a Reagan Republican? I proudly served in the military under Ronald Reagan as the president of the United States. And I served under George Bush Sr., who him and his wife absolutely loved us with a passion. I know. Because my wife drove the ambulance in the motorcade, and I stood behind that president and his wife in moments and listened to that conversation. I stood when Barbara Bush put a blanket around me one night when we were standing in the freezing rain, and she said, child, you come in and put us right next to them in a line that were shaking hands in this place. And here's some lonely airman who's standing next to Barbara Bush when there should have been a dignitary there, but she cared about an American troop who was standing outside in the ice cold while I was sleeting down and raining down ice. I wanted to make sure I was standing in that line in a blanket. We should have been standing there in tuxedos. And she made sure we were taken care of at the request of her husband. Now, that's pretty amazing to me. Yeah. So I do have a little bit of that tendency in my heart for sure. But the other thing, that the reason why I have that tendency as well is because I also know that in my lifetime, though they may not have been solid, absolute, rock solid evangelicals in their faith, they saw value. They saw value in the Word of God, and they saw value in the trust in Jesus Christ. And that has been amazing to me. And every single time that I have watched as the Democrats have taken office, most of the time, I've watched morality decline in ways unprecedented, especially over the last 4 years. And the 8 years of the Democratic president before that, I've watched morality decline in ways I have never seen in my lifetime. So yes, it's time maybe we called a spade, and a heart, and understood what the history of this nation has looked like and what it has brought us to now. And if you have any questions about that, you should go read the party principles. Get online and read the Democratic Party principles. Get online, and read the Republican Party principles, and then make your decisions on where you stand. Brings me to Psalm 27 just for a moment. Psalm 27, Psalm 26, even if I back up just for a minute and I go to verse 9, here's David who says, "Do not gather my soul with sinners. Do not put my life with bloodthirsty men, because in their hands is a sinister scheme, and their right hand is full of bribes." This is David saying, I don't want to be in this gathering of sinners where they're in their right hand is a sinister scheme being a plot against good people. That's what exactly that means. And whose right hand is full of bribes. That means they only care about themselves, no matter what people they destroy in the process. Here's what he says in verse 11. "But as for me," Psalm 26:11, "but as for me, let me walk in my integrity. Lord, redeem me. Be merciful to me. My foot stands in an even place, and in the congregation I will bless the Lord." This is important. One of the things he's saying is no matter what comes, when the sinister men come and their hands are full of bribes and all of that, even those who are around me, don't let me desire to be there. Don't let me desire to be a part of that. But let me walk in my integrity. Redeem me, Lord. Be merciful to me. And there's a reason why he says that. My foot stands in an even place. I have a foundation that is founded in you, Lord, and I'm grounded there. Do you know why that's good? Because normally when the foundation is in the Lord and the nation is actually going in that direction, there's not somebody waiting to cut your throat. There's not somebody waiting to stab you in the back. When you're a man of integrity, it means a lot, especially when the world is dark. You're a blessing to the congregation. You're a blessing to the Lord in the congregation. He goes on to Psalm 27. He says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Because he is, who shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, and the enemies and the foes, they all stumbled and fell. And though an army may encamp against me, my heart shall not be in fear. The war may rise against me. In this one thing I will be confident." He means that the Lord is my light and my salvation. Verse 4 says, "One thing I've desired of the Lord that I will seek, that I might dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion, and in the secret place of his tabernacle he shall hide me, and he'll set me high upon a rock." I can tell you this much. One thing I do know. There's something about being in the church house that's pretty amazing on a Sunday with the people of God. But sometimes when church is over, there is a hush in the house of God, where the people have been and the Lord has been and the Spirit of God has been. There's a lingering of that in the house of God that is so peaceful that there are no words to describe it. Verse 6 says this, and this is you and me, those of us who believe in Jesus Christ. And if you don't, at the end of this podcast, I'll tell you how you can. But if those of you that are believers in Jesus Christ, listen to me. My head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me. No matter what happens around us, folks, no matter what is going on, let our heads be lifted up. Let our heads be lifted high. He says, therefore, I'll offer sacrifices of joy in his temple. We'll be people of joy in the house of God. And yes, I will sing praises to the Lord no matter what. Verse 7 says, hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy upon me and answer me. When you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, Lord, it's your face that I will seek. Lord, do not hide your face from me. Do not turn away your servant in anger. For you have been my help. So do not leave me or forsake me, O God of my salvation. Even when my father and my mother forsake me, then, Lord, I know you will take care of me. So teach me your ways, O Lord, and lead me in a smooth path because of my enemies. Do not deliver me to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me. And as such, they breathe out these acts of violence. And the truth is, I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So wait on the Lord. Be of good courage. He'll strengthen your heart. Wait. I say to you, wait on the Lord. That, ladies and gentlemen, is where we are. I spent the first part of this podcast kind of telling you what was going on and all of those things, but I'm telling you, wait on the Lord. He works in times just like this in the heart of people. So many that turn to him, that want something better. I know we look up and we look out there at times and say, could it get any worse than this? Of course, the answer always is yes. But it's in times like this that God does his best work. That many seek for him. They seek his face. And I know many will seek the hands too. They'll seek his hands. I know there'll be prayer groups and everybody getting together so that God will put together and place in office his political candidate that they want to be their choice. I understand all of that. I do. And what happens if that doesn't happen? Well, I can tell you this, the Lord has a plan even in that. And that's not cliche. It is the truth. In order for the prodigal son to have come home, he had to come first to his senses. In order for the prodigal son to come home in the story of the prodigal son, in the parable of the prodigal son, he had to first come to his senses and realize that he had sinned against his father in order for him to come home. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe moments like this that we face in history are times that God brings people to their senses. Not everyone will come to their senses. Some are way far away. Some's hearts will be hardened even beyond anything we've ever known. But there are so many more whose hearts will not. And God will use moments just like this to reach them. So I promise you today, what you look at, and you might think today in the health, wealth, and prosperity definition of the evangelical faith, you might look and say, oh my goodness, it's hopeless. It's not hopeless. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, it's so hopeful in ways so that you can reach people with the gospel. I don't believe there's ever been a time in history more hopeful for that than right now. And it's true. And I'm not being the eternal optimist to tell you that. What I'm trying to tell you is it's times like this when the gospel will be preached into all nations. And God will use these very moments to do it. And he'll break people to do it. The reality is that does there need to be a breaking of the American people? On some scales, maybe so. But to be honest with you, I don't want to proclaim and try to stand here and be God because I don't want to be that. Do I know the plan? No. But I do know the plan lies in I do know the one that the plan is in the hands of. And I wholeheartedly trust in him. So therefore, going back to Psalm 26, my foot stands in an even place, no matter what comes, no matter what the outcome. Could things get worse? Sure. I could go to Luke chapter 21 and tell you about the return of Christ in judgment and take you through all of that and show you that and tell you that he could. But for right now, there's a lot of hopefulness on the horizon on a lot of levels. So it's not done for yet. The nation's still great, still a great place to be, still has a number of great people that are here. And I believe you're going to see some things take place over the next few months that are going to be hopeful. I do believe so. And no matter what, the Lord is at work, no matter what happens. So believers, listen to me. Don't lose your hopefulness. Don't lose that hope. Retain it. Hold on to it. Be listening for opportunities to give an answer for the light that you have in a world now, not just our nation, a world that continues to grow dark. So today, you've been listening to Grounded, and I'm your host, Scott Cates. What's all this mean? Well, politics and talking about politics can get all over the map for sure. But at the same time, there's an answer that is here for the times that we have that are going on. And this is our answer. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? If you do not know Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord today, you could come to him. All you have to do is stop right where you are and realize that you're apart from Jesus. If you've never asked him to come into your life and never asked him for forgiveness of your sins, and today that you need forgiveness of your sins so that you can walk with God, it's the one thing that's in between you and God. And so today maybe you need to stop where you are and say, Lord, forgive me of my sins so I can walk with you. I want to be standing on that foundation of you. So Lord, come into my life, lead me, guide me, and help me as you forgive me of my sins and take me to heaven when I die. I want you more than anything. You could stop right where you are and tell Jesus that and come to know Christ today. Secondly, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, don't let these things get you down. But find a place in your heart where you're passionate about what you believe. Stand on the foundation of the faith that we have and stand strong in it. Give an answer for the hope that you have. And stand up, serve in it. Find a place in your local church to serve. Find a place you can get involved. Find a place you can get involved in people's lives. And of course, go out and cast that vote. Well, you've been listening to Grounded. Again, I'm Scott Cates. It's the place to hear the salty truth. And even though it's Tuesday today, I'll be back on Monday with you with a new podcast. Thank you for listening today. Y'all have a great week.